Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestle News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there is a ton of news stories to get into today. So let's get into today's news and let's start off talking about Monday Night Raw and the ratings. I know people won't want to talk about it. I know people will say, ratings don't matter. I know people will say no one cares about ratings or they're insignificant in modern day pro wrestling. I get it. I totally get it. But these are significant stories and they're always significant. And as I mentioned last year, and as I will continue to mention every time there is a story about Monday Night Raw and the low ratings and the record loads, and then the subsequent WWE are making plans to change Raw, they're making plans to revitalize the brand, or they realize the product is stale but changes are coming, exciting things are coming, get ready, there will be a new record low. I'll be stunned if we go through the remainder of the year without another record low, non-holiday record low, which this is, by the way, because this is the pattern. This has been the pattern for the last 20 years or so, and if we choose to ignore it every single time it happens, then we're just deluding and kidding ourselves. And I think that we like to try and do that, I suppose, as pro wrestling fans, but that's the situation. So WWE Monday Night Raw draws the lowest non-holiday audience of the year. Monday's live edition of Raw, featuring Drew McIntyre versus Riddle versus Raw Tag Team Champion AJ Styles in a Money in the Bank qualifier triple threat main event, drew an average of 1.57 million viewers on the USA Network. This is according to John Orund of Sports Business Journal. Now, this is down 8.7% from last week's 1.719 million viewers for the post-Hell in a Cell episode. Now, at the moment, as the time of recording right now, we don't have the 18 to 49 key demographic rating. But, of course, once that comes out, we'll let you know about it. Now, last week's show drew a 0.49 rating in the key demographic, which was even with the week before. Now, this week's Raw was the second lowest viewership of the year so far, behind Memorial Day. Viewership was down 8.7% from the previous week. It should be noted that Raw faced stiff competition from the NBA playoffs, whilst last week's post-Hell in the Show episode of Raw did not. Monday's Raw viewership was also down 9.5% from the same week in 2020. Of course, once we have more data, we'll talk about it here on the channel. So, as I mentioned, look, when it comes to Raw ratings, when it comes to just talking about Raw in general, and it talks about the numbers going down and all that kind of stuff. Again, I know people get tired of it, and I know people respond to it going, what's new? The sky's blue, no one watches Raw. And it's a shame, because I think the last, really since post sort of Hell in a Cell, I guess, or even like post Hell in a Cell, the episodes of Monday Night Raw have been okay for Raw. There are still massive flaws in that program. Let's be honest there. There are still massive issues with that program. There are still massive points of contention where you'll just say, look, that show just objectively is not good. Objectively, it's not a good show. And objectively, there are just parts of that broadcast that are just, the logic isn't there. And, like I said before, we spoke about the Raw ratings last week. And I think the ratings were down coming out of Hell in a Cell than they were coming into it. And some people were saying, wow, they had a Hell in a Cell main event and the numbers were still down. Why? And the reason why is because, of course, they didn't advertise that Hell in a Cell main event between Bobby Lashley and Xavier Woods last week. Now, one would suggest that's not necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes the biggest surprises nowadays are ruined by WWE advertising ahead of time. But now you can see why they do it, because they've lost the trust of the audience. And that's a really important point here. They've lost the trust of the audience. Previously, you would tune into Monday Night Raw because you would say, who knows what can happen? Anything can happen. You could have a Hell in a Cell main event, right? You never know what's going to happen. Anything can happen on Monday Night Raw. Anything can happen in a WWE broadcast, right? Anything can happen, and that's why we have to tune into Monday Night Raw. After years and years of stagnation, boring programming, and too many episodes full of rematches, recap packages, roll-up finishes, and just let's run it back, let's do a rematch, and just a boring episode where nothing happens. The fans have lost interest in tuning in because you never know. That idea of anything spontaneous or anything exciting happening off the cuff of Monday Night Raw does not exist anymore. The only thing raw about that program is its name. Nothing else is raw. It is so contrived. It is so scripted. It is so heavily overproduced and just, it lacks that energy. I know it's a live broadcast, but sometimes you're begging for a slip up just to realize that it's not a tape broadcast. And then even when the botches do happen, whether they're production or in the ring, it doesn't even feel like it's spontaneous. It just, I don't know. And you can tell that people are sort of scrambling because that's not meant to happen. That's not in the script. Not that that's ever a bad thing. Again, when it comes to the low audiences, WWE will respond to this, and USA Network will respond to this by saying, well, we're going to be going back to touring soon. We're going to have live fans back soon, and it's going to be fun. We're going to have new sets. We're going to have new graphics. We're going to have new this. We're going to have new that. And if they really, truly think that is going to, in the long term, fix Monday Night Raw, then they're deluded. Then they're absolutely deluded, because it won't. It won't, because the numbers weren't great prior to the pandemic. Raw was still a bad show to watch prior to the pandemic, and that was when fans were in attendance. That's when we had a new set. That's when you had new graphics. That's when you had this. That's when you had that. We're always waiting every year, it feels like, for a reset. Ever since 2018, we're going to have a reset. You're the Authority. 2019, we're going to have Premiere Week on Raw and SmackDown. SmackDown's on Fox. They're going to have a reset of Raw on USA Network. 2020, we're going to go to the Thunderdome. 2021, we're returning to touring. Every year there's an excuse. Every year there's an excuse, and every single year it feels like, well, just wait until later on. Well, we're still waiting, and the numbers continue to go down. That's Monday Night Raw. Some nice news yesterday, because Becky Lynch and Seth Rollins finally tied the knot. Now, earlier on Tuesday, Seth Rollins took to his Instagram stories and teased that he and Becky Lynch were about to tie the knot. Rollins wrote, quote, you can see it on the screen there, "Seems like a fine day to finally get married." A few hours later, WWE seemingly confirmed that Lynch and Rollins got married by tweeting out congratulations to the happy couple and following it up with an article on WWE.com. WWE tweeted out, quote, "Congratulations to Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch, who are getting married today." The WWE.com article congratulated the newlyweds and wrote, quote, "She is the man, she is the mom, and as of today, Becky Lynch is officially a wife." Rollins and Lynch welcomed their first daughter, Rue, on December 4 of last year. Following their engagement in August of 2019, the couple had originally planned to get married last May, but couldn't go through with their plans due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Obviously, huge congratulations to both Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch. I know quite a few people personally, that with the pandemic altered everything when it comes to, weddings and all that such. So what a beautiful location, right? As well, look at that view. It's incredible. So congratulations to both Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch. Let's talk about NXT. Of course, last night NXT was on the USA Network. Let's talk about Samoa Joe. Now, the story of Samoa Joe's return to WWE and NXT continues. Now, recently, Joe did an interview with Justin Barrasso of Sports Illustrated, and I'm not going to read through all the quotes because we spoke about this largely yesterday when he pretty much gave the same answers that he gave to Ryan Satin on the Out of Character podcast. What is interesting, though, is Samoa Joe confirmed in this interview with Justin Barrasso that he is not medically cleared to wrestle as of right now. This is again due to the concussion he suffered at a WWE commercial shoot in early 2020. So as of right now, Samoa Joe is not cleared to compete. He has not passed any medical clearance or anything like that. So the hopes of Samoa Joe possibly wrestling the likes of maybe a Karrion Kross or a Pete Dunne or whoever to the NXT TakeOver show in August, I don't know about that one, to be honest with you. Obviously, the intention is there because it must be stated that during that podcast appearance that he did with Ryan Satin, Samoa Joe did say, look, I do plan on wrestling again. He did speak about when he stepped away from the Raw commentary desk earlier this year that he was going to start working on his rehabilitation. And I guess this is for those concussion issues. So, look, Samoa Joe, I have no doubt he will wrestle again. I know people were saying, well, it's been a long time, and it has been. It's been a very long time. Daniel Bryan, though, was also out of the ring for 2 years as well. The guy wrote out, was it longer? 2 years? About 2 years. He retired in 2016, came back 2018. So these things can take time. The thing is, when it comes to concussions, and I am far from an expert, but, we learn more about them every single day. Again, Daniel Bryan in 2016 was told you're never going to wrestle again. 2 years later, he was winning the World Championship. Again, the thing is with concussions is that the protocol changes on it and the science behind it changes on it. Joe's not been told at this point you're never wrestling again. He's just been told you're not cleared as of right now. I think Joe will wrestle again for WWE. Whether that's for NXT, whether that's for Raw, whether that's for SmackDown, I don't know. Certainly the hope is that he will be able to compete once again at some points. Again, how soon that will be, I'm sure as part of his deal to come back, he stressed what he stressed before to WWE is that I want to wrestle, I want to work. and I'm open to coming back. I'm happy to come back and work on the NXT brand. I'm happy to come back and work behind the scenes at the Performance Center. I'm happy to be a talent scout. I would love to begin my transition into moving behind the scenes, but just so you know, I'm not done yet. And I want to wrestle for WWE, but we need to actively put in some steps in place to make sure that that can happen. So time will tell as to what process that will look like. Again, I'm under the heavy impression Joe will wrestle again, and he will wrestle again for WWE. It just looks like it's not going to be anytime soon. So that's certainly very interesting going forward. Speaking of NXT, last night we saw a new NXT North American Champion crowned because Isaiah Swerve Scott is the new NXT North American Champion. On last night's Great American Bash Go Home edition of NXT on the USA Network, it was headlined by Scott defeating former champion Bronson Reed to become the new North American Champion. The match saw interference from Hit Row's Top Dollar, The Adonis, B-Fab. Hit Row had been taunting Reed for the past several weeks, and tonight they challenged him, or last night rather, they challenged him to a match during an earlier backstage segment. Reed granted Scott the title shot and then dropped the championship to him in the main event. This is Scott's first reign since signing with WWE in April of 2019. Reed just won the title back in May by defeating Johnny Gargano in a steel cage match, so not a long title reign for Bronson Reed at all. Now, of course, Bronson Reed has been rumored for a main roster call-up in the WWE Draft, which takes place on August 30th edition of Monday Night Raw and the September 3rd edition of SmackDown. He has been brought to recent episodes of Raw and SmackDown shows so the officials could get a closer look at him. And now this title change has happened, it's a sign that maybe WWE has indeed decided that Bronson Reed is scheduled to come up to the main roster. So maybe Bronson Reed's getting called up far earlier than the WWE Draft. That's certainly how I look at it. It's the same vein as Keith Lee last year. Keith Lee won the NXT Championship from Adam Cole in that winner-take-all match, and then a month later he drops it. He's up in the main roster, and I kind of look at it as the same way, that Bronson Reed wins the championship. When he won the championship, I don't think there were plans for him to be called up to the main roster. Those have developed over the course of the last few weeks, and then wouldn't you know it, he drops the championship last night to Isaiah Swerve Scott, and I think he's up for the main roster. Where he'll go, time will only tell. I'm really happy for Isaiah Swerve Scott. Hit Row's arguably one of the best things about NXT right now. That faction is money. The gimmick is money. Isaiah Swerve Scott in this heel role, embracing a bit of an attitude, having a bit of edge to his character, I think is great. I think the promos they've done, I think everything they've done, the Hit Row faction has just been great. I really think it's been great. And, you know, maybe it's a combination of a couple of things. Maybe it's a case of, as I mentioned, Bronson Reed getting called up to the main roster, which I do think is happening soon. But maybe it's also a situation of, look, Isaiah Swerve Scott's hot right now. The faction Hit Row's hot, and you go with what's working, and what's working right now is Hit Row, and maybe it's time to double down on it, you know? So I think it's more a case of Bronson Reed getting called up, if I'm going to be honest with you, because that feels pretty inevitable once you've done, you know, you've gone to Raws, you've gone to SmackDown, you do main event tapings. Vince McMahon has obviously liked what he's seen there, and obviously it's a case of Bronson Reed now of when. It's just a case of when, I think, at this point. It's a case of, okay, do we have him chase the North American Championship for the remainder of July and then he gets caught up in the draft, or do we get him caught up straight away? Lord knows that Raw and SmackDown need bodies. Maybe Bronson Reed is the name that gets called up straight away. Maybe a name like Karrion Kross. Maybe a proposition was put towards Triple H of, look, we want Kross, we want Bronson Reed. And Triple H has gone, look, them are two singles male champions of that NXT brand. I can give you one right away, but the other one you've got to give me time. We're still producing a television show here. And maybe it's a case of, right, we can have Bronson Reed drop the NXT North American Championship, but we still need to sell a takeover. We still need to do a takeover in August, and that needs to be headlined by Kross. He can drop the championship then you can have him. Then you can have him from the draft, and you can have him for whatever. But I need Karrion Kross until the end of August. So maybe that's a case of really where the situation when it comes to the NXT Championship picture for both the North American Championship and the NXT Championship. Speaking of NXT, the NXT Breakout Tournament is returning later this year. The 2021 WWE NXT Breakout Tournament will begin in 2 weeks during the NXT episode last night. During the NXT episode last night, it was announced that this will be taking place. It will begin on Tuesday, July 13. This will be the first episode after the Great American Bash next week. Now, WWE has not announced any participants for the tournament as of recording right now, but they have confirmed there will be 8 participants again this year. It was noted before that breakout qualifying matches were taped on Tuesday before NXT at the 205 live tapings. WWE has also confirmed that the winner of the breakout tournament will receive a future title shot of their choosing. The first promo for the Breakout Tournament was released last night. The first and only Breakout Tournament until now was held in 2019 with the winner Jordan Miles. Remember how that went. Jordan Miles, Angel Garza, Dexter Lumis, Boa, Cameron Grimes, Joaquin Wilde, Bronson Reed, and the new NXT North American Champion Isaiah Swerve Scott all being involved. The new promo only touts Grimes, Scott, Loomis, Wilde, Garza, and Reed. Miles, of course, left the company only a few months after winning the tournament and earned a title shot of his choosing. By winning the tournament, he later challenged then NXT champion Adam Cole and lost. Of course, again, he left NXT after the perceived racism of his merchandise in 2019. It was just a crazy, crazy story. When you look back on it now, it's just an absolutely crazy story. But the NXT Breakout Tournament is going back, and let's be honest, all of the names we just referenced there are all pretty much staples of the NXT brand now. So it certainly was a breakout tournament. So certainly we could be getting a glimpse at the future as to the names involved in that. So that is going to be very interesting. I know everyone likes to see who's the next big thing and who's the next big thing of the developmental brand. I know Johnny Gargano and Adam Cole hate it being called a developmental brand, but that is what it is. So very interesting there. A scary moment during the NXT last night, though, because Mercedes Martinez looked like she was stunned or knocked out during last night's episode. Now, last night, Xylee and Boa of Tian Sha defeated Martinez and Jake Atlas in a mixed tag team match. Now, the finish came after Lee delivered a roundhouse to the side of Mercedes Martinez's head. The referee then checked on Martinez and ended the match via referee stoppage. Now, this was not confirmed by WWE or the announcers, but there was speculation on Martinez possibly being knocked out by Lee's kick. Now, Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful tweeted out an update regarding this and said, quote, Mercedes Martinez was checked in the back and talent/staff were told she's heading to the hospital for further evaluation. So I would assume this was not the planned finish. I think most of the time when there's a referee stoppage, it's very rare, to be honest, that referee stoppage is actually legitimate nowadays. Is not legitimate rather nowadays. I think I think it was serious last night. I think it was legit. And you know, it's the thing is about people seeing getting anyone, you know, knocked out or unconscious. It's just very, very disturbing. So thankfully, it looks like she's okay, but she is on the. She went to a hospital last night, so fingers crossed she's fine. But it was nasty, and it certainly was scary. So best wishes to Mercedes Martinez. We have an update on Drake Wurtz. I know people are already groaning. I can hear him now. Former NXT referee Drake Wurtz took to Instagram yesterday afternoon and revealed a text message he received from WWE Talent Relations head John Laurinaitis a few weeks before he was fired. Now, this was in regards to wearing masks and the COVID-19 vaccine. Now, the screenshot provided by Wurtz says Thursday as the date of the text message, but it's likely that Drake received a similar message around the time that WWE Hall of Famer Jerry Lawler received such a message. Lawler tweeted out in late May how he had received a message a few weeks before in regards to WWE's COVID-19 and vaccination policy. Now, this is what the message had to say, quote, effective immediately at all upcoming TVs, if you have been fully vaccinated, you are no longer required to test or wear a mask. However, if you are fully vaccinated, make sure medical has proof of your vaccination. If you are not fully vaccinated, the standard protocol is still in place. You will have to test, fill out paperwork, have your temperature checked, and wear a mask. Now, Drake Wurtz followed this with a very long statement, and it's an eye roller, to be honest with you. He said, quote, any company that is discriminating against employees that refuse to participate in an experimental medical procedure by forcing them to show proof of vaccination in order to come to work in a normal capacity is violating basic human rights. I questioned, pushed back, and then defied this tyrannical overreach of control that didn't fit their narrative, and I was punished. Faith is taking a stand and knowing that God has you covered. I lost my six-figure job for taking a stand on multiple fronts, and I don't regret it one bit. We all come to a point where we have to either follow the Lord or follow the world. That decision was easy for me. I'd rather flip burgers for the glory of God than sell myself for being part of a cabal that's pushing a deceptive lie that you must mask up or take a jab in order to participate in normal everyday life. A company I thought was patriotic has now bowed to the communist mob agenda. First of all, Drake Wurtz, shut up. 2, don't be like Drake Wurtz, okay? The guy is obviously off his rocker. Now, again, I don't want to get too political on this on this channel. It's a pro wrestling channel, but that kind of stuff that he's putting out there is dangerous. It's dangerous, and that's what it is. I've had my first shot of being vaccinated. I had it a couple of weeks ago at the first opportunity, and I will be fully vaccinated in a few extra weeks' time because that's what we have to do to get through this. And Drake Wurtz, look, he can brag about, I sacrificed a six-figure job for all of this. Well, you're an idiot. He's an idiot. You know, and WWE, he can talk about WWE violating human rights. WWE has done a lot of terrible things in the past. Even if you go back to the beginning of the pandemic, they weren't believing on it back then. Maybe that's why Drake Wurtz is so unhappy, because back then there certainly was a mentality in WWE that this wasn't real. Some of those stories about the Performance Center when they were doing the tapings there are horrifying, okay? About not wearing masks, come in, how do you feel? Fine, come on in, have a wrestling match. Those were horrifying, those stories. And having people that were up there in age and up there in, you know, with medical issues, that's why people like Roman Reigns said, you know what, I'm out of here. That's why people like Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn said, you know what, I'm out of here too. And Vince McMahon in the end had to bow to them and realize, actually, my big stars are leaving because it's not right. And finally, WWE got their head out of their behind and realized that this was a serious matter, and they've put all of these protocols in place like everyone else has, because otherwise people die. It's as simple as that. And I know people will talk about mortality rates and all that kind of stuff, so you're saying it's acceptable that other people can die. You know, Drake Wurtz is just an idiot. He's an idiot, and I know people will say, well, why are you giving him the coverage on this channel? Because I want to point out the guy is a tool. Okay, let's move on. Now, speaking of a tool, Baron Corbin, good segue, right? Baron Corbin, King Corbin is no more. WWE is no longer billing Corbin with the King name. His name has just been changed back to Baron Corbin on the official roster. Now, of course, this is after Corbin lost his crown to Shinsuke Nakamura. But we may have a name change and a character change for Corbin coming soon, because WWE recently filed 3 new trademarks. One was Nikki Ash, referring to Nikki Cross's new name she debuted on Raw this week. But another one is Happy Corbin. Yes, Happy Corbin looks to be a new character going forward. Now, you can see there, rather, that is not a happy man. That is not happy. And I guess that's the opposite, is that it's either two things. They're going to go with a guy that's very, very sad all the time, so his name's going to be Happy Corbin, or a guy that just, I guess, loses his mind and then is super, super happy, so he's Happy Corbin. Either way, the name's horrible. The name, who is coming up with these names? Honestly, Doudrop, Nikki Ash, Happy Corbin, Shorty G. I mean, the list can go on and on. The Viking Experience. I mean, who's coming up with these names at this point? Because they're awful. They're absolutely awful. And Happy Corbin, I don't know. I'm lost for words on that one. I truly am lost for Happy Corbin. Seriously? Lord Almighty. Sanjay Dutt, WWE producer, has reportedly left WWE. Dutt had been working for the company as a producer, but Fightful Select has reported that he is now left. Word going around is that it was Dutt's decision to leave the company, but additional details have not been confirmed as of right now. It was also reported by PW Insider that Dutt gave his notice a few weeks back and left the company on his own. Now, Dutt started working for WWE as a producer in January of 2019 after an Achilles injury had kept him out of in-ring action since late 2017. Now, it was noted that we should be expecting changes within WWE, including potentially some big behind-the-scenes changes in the coming days and weeks. So stay tuned regarding that one, because maybe this is the beginning of some major changes. Who knows? Finally, we have some update when it comes to SummerSlam and how quickly WWE sold tickets for the event, because WWE reportedly sold more than 30,000 tickets to SummerSlam in just the first 12 hours of seats being on sale last week. Now, it was noted before that WWE looked to have moved a significant amount of SummerSlam tickets in the pre-sales last week. Tickets were then put on sale to the general public on Friday. In an update, Sports Business Journal was reporting that sales for SummerSlam topped 30,000 tickets in the first 12 hours. It's been reported by the Wrestling Observer radio show that between 36 and 37 tickets were sold. Ticketmaster had the current capacity for SummerSlam listed at 41,661. SummerSlam tickets were available at various price points, and at one point during the pre-sales, there were seats ranging from $300 up to $5,150 each. Now, WWE has had the goal of packing the house for SummerSlam, as Allegiant Stadium will be open at full capacity. Of course, the main event is rumored to be John Cena versus Roman Reigns for the Universal Championship. There's also been rumors about Cardi B being a host. She revealed her pregnancy last weekend. It's also been reported that WWE has WrestleMania-level plans for the show. So they're selling tickets, and looks like more tickets will continue to be sold. But look, guys, as always, This is just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on all these WWE news stories we've spoken about today? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, talking about WWE, AEW, Impact Wrestling, New Japan Pro Wrestling, all things pro wrestling here on the channel. So be sure to get involved in the community. Drop a comment below. All opinions are welcome. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button too. Really does help us out here on YouTube. Go up the rankings and get to people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestle News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right-hand corner of the screen right now, or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or have you come across this video today, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.